Welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent us some really interesting stuff on Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's definitely a book that got a lot of people thinking differently about money.
It really did, and the whole thing hinges on this contrast, right, between the two dads.
Yeah, the poor dad, smart guy, educated, but, financially kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm. And then the rich dad, who maybe didn't have the same academic background, but built wealth through, business and investing.
Exactly, that contrast. That's what we really want to unpack today. You want to get into those 7 key laws or principles from the rich dad.
Yeah.
And our goal here isn't just to retell the stories, but to really look at these laws. How do they offer a different path, maybe a more effective one, to building wealth?
That's the idea. We want something actionable, something you can, wrap your head around. And the big theme, like you said, is that shift, moving from just working for a paycheck to getting your money, your assets, actually working for you.
Right.
There are some pretty powerful ideas in there. Could really change your perspective.
Okay, let's jump in. Law number 1, the rich don't work for money. Money works for them. Feels like the absolute foundation, doesn't it?
It really is. This one draws a clear line between active income, trading your time for a wage. Standard job, exactly. And passive income, the money that flows in from assets you own. The thinking behind the two dads here is, worlds apart. Poor Dad was all about working hard, job security, saving money.
Yeah, the path most of us are taught, right? Work hard, get paid, put some aside.
That's the one. Rich Dad, though, he was focused on building or buying things, assets that put money in your pocket without you having to actively, constantly work for it.
Okay.
And the key insight isn't just like earn money while you sleep. It's deeper. It's changing how you see time and money. Instead of your time being the only thing you trade, you start using capital, money itself, as a tool to make more money. And that frees up your time. It's a big mental leap for a lot of people.
So what kind of assets actually do that? Create this passive income? The book mentions a few.
Yeah, the examples help make it real. We're talking things like rental properties, right?
Yeah.
Bringing in rent checks each month.
Okay.
Or businesses, but one's set up so they don't need you there day to day. Maybe they have good managers.
Right, systems in place.
Exactly. Stocks that pay dividends, bonds earning interest, even things like royalties from a book or a patent. Intellectual property.
So they all keep generating income.
Whether you're punching a clock at that exact moment or not, that's the common thread.
So the main point here is moving away from just relying on your job's income. It's about actively building up these other streams, making money work for you, not just you working for it.
Precisely. It's realizing that a good salary is, it's helpful, but your main financial game should be building that asset column. That's where the long-term security and growth really come from. Okay,
that flows naturally into law number 2. Financial education is more valuable than a high salary. Now that really pushes against the usual advice.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
Rich Dad's point is that, our usual schooling teaches us how to be good employees.
Right.
But it doesn't always teach us how money itself works, how to make it grow. He valued that practical financial smarts much, much higher.
So Poor Dad would say, study hard, get good grades, get a high-paying job. What was the rich dad counter to that?
Rich Dad's line was something like, learn how money works and you'll never be trapped by it. It's about equipping yourself with the know-how to navigate finances, make smart choices, not just depend on that paycheck.
And this financial education, it's more than just balancing a checkbook, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. It goes into understanding taxes, how they work, how businesses legally minimize them, accounting, like actually reading financial statements, understanding cash flow.
Which is vital for any investment.
Totally. Investing itself, different types, risks, rewards, building a portfolio, and just, basic market sense, what makes things go up or down.
And a huge piece of this, which comes up again and again in the book, is that difference between assets and liabilities.
Exactly. That's core. Rich Dad's simple definition. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. Think consumer debt, maybe a fancy car payment. Assets put money in your pocket, like that rental property or those dividend stocks.
Okay.
So a big part of this financial education is learning to really focus on acquiring the assets and keeping the liabilities low. The more you get that, the better your decisions and the less financial risk you generally face.
Right. So learn first, then apply that knowledge to build assets, which leads us nicely to law number 3, mind your own business. Now, this doesn't mean everyone has to, quit their job tomorrow and launch a startup, does it?
No, not necessarily as the immediate step, though maybe that's the goal for some long term. It's more about where your financial focus lies.
Yeah.
Poor Dad probably believed in loyalty to the company Work hard, climb the ladder, they'll look after you.
Yeah, the traditional career path.
Right. Rich Dad's view. Different. Your primary job is to grow your own wealth, not just make someone else richer. So, even while you have a job, your main financial energy should go into building your own asset column outside of that job.
Okay, so practically speaking, how does someone mind their own business if they're working a 9 to 5?
Well, several ways. You could start a side hustle, right? Even something small.
Yeah.
Generates extra cash, maybe becomes a real asset later. Or investing, not just the company 401k, but maybe individual stocks, maybe some real estate, other ventures.
Yeah.
Basically creating income streams not tied directly to your employer.
Got it. Diversifying your income sources.
Exactly. And here's a key part. Reinvesting the profits from those things back into buying more assets, not just immediately upgrading your lifestyle every time you make a bit extra.
Right, avoiding that lifestyle creep. Build the foundation first.
Build the foundation. That's the essence of minding your own financial business.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Building your own little financial world alongside your job. Now, Law 4 gets into maybe trickier territory. Corporations and taxes, the rich, play the game differently. This one usually gets people talking.
It really does. This law points out how wealthier people often use corporations, not just for legal protection if something goes wrong.
Liability protection.
Right, but also as a way to optimize taxes. Poor Dad's view might just be, pay your taxes, it's your duty.
Which is what most people think, yeah.
Sure. But Rich Dad's angle is more strategic. Use the legal tax rules to keep more of what you earn. Think about it. Businesses have expenses, right? Things needed to make money.
Okay.
The tax system often lets businesses deduct those necessary expenses before they figure out the profit that gets taxed. This lowers the taxable amount.
Whereas an employee pays for, say, their commute or work clothes with money they've already been taxed on.
Exactly. And understanding different structures, like LLCs or S-Corp, can offer different advantages, legally and tax-wise. It depends on the situation. But the big difference Rich Dad highlights is the cash flow sequence. Often the rich earn, then they invest or spend through their business, and then pay taxes on what's left.
Whereas employees usually earn, get taxed immediately.
And then spend or invest whatever remains. That order makes a huge difference over time.
So it's about understanding the rules and structuring things proactively, not just accepting the default employee tax situation. Okay, law number 5 is interesting. The rich invent money. Sounds a bit like magic.
Yeah, sounds that way. But it's really about challenging the idea that money is just, out there and you have to find it. It emphasizes being proactive, creating opportunities. Poor Dad might have thought, money's tight, better play it safe. Risk averse.
Yeah, scarcity thinking.
Scarcity thinking, exactly. Rich Dad's law says something like, opportunities are everywhere. You just have to spot them or create them or leverage them. It's about having an abundance mindset, actively looking for ways to create wealth.
So it's not just waiting for a good stock tip.
Definitely not. It involves being good at solving problems.
Yeah.
I mean, fundamentally, businesses make money by solving someone's problem.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So the better you get at seeing needs and figuring out solutions, the more opportunities you can basically invent. This law also talks about using OPM.
OPM?
Other people's money. It's not about reckless debt. It's about using leverage smartly. Like getting a mortgage for a rental property. You control a bigger asset than you could buy with cash.
Right.
And if the rent covers the mortgage and costs, plus profit, you use the bank's money to build your wealth faster.
Okay, leverage.
Leverage. And it's also about turning ideas into income. Licensing an invention, franchising a business model, creating digital products, taking something intangible and making it generate cash.
It's definitely a more active entrepreneurial approach than just earning a salary.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Law 6, work to learn, not just to earn. This feels important for long-term growth.
Oh, absolutely. This one says acquiring diverse skills is more valuable in the long run than just chasing the highest salary in one specific narrow field. Poor Dad might have focused on specializing, become the expert in X for job security in that field.
The traditional expert model.
Right. But Rich Dad's law encourages broadening out. Diversify your skills to create more opportunities. The focus shifts. You might take a job not just for the pay, but for what it teaches you skills you can use elsewhere.
What kinds of skills does the book really highlight as being key for wealth building?
It specifically mentions things like sales. Super important. If you can't sell your idea, your product, it's tough.
Sure.
Marketing, understanding how to reach people, negotiation, getting good deals, leadership, especially as you build things.
The idea is, the wider your skill set, the more adaptable you are, the more valuable you become overall, which ultimately opens up more doors and increases your earning potential, not just your current paycheck.
So become more of a generalist in business and finance skills, not just a specialist in one technical area. Okay, last one. Law number 7. Overcoming obstacles, fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance. This seems to be all about the internal game.
It really is. This law basically says, look, often the biggest things holding people back aren't the economy or bad luck. It's their own stuff, their mindset, their behaviors.
Right.
Poor dad might often say, I can't afford it, which kind of shuts down possibilities, right?
Yeah.
It's a fixed mindset.
Yeah, it stops you from even looking for solutions.
Exactly. Rich Dad flips it to a question, how can I afford it? That immediately forces you to think, to problem solve, to look for ways. It's a growth mindset.
Okay.
And then the law tackles these specific hurdles. Fear, like fear of losing money, fear of failure, stops people from taking calculated risks needed for growth. Cynicism, and listening to all the doubters, the that'll never work crowd, can kill an idea before it starts. Laziness, just a lack of discipline, not putting in the consistent effort needed for any financial plan. Bad habits, especially spending habits, like buying liabilities instead of assets, prioritizing fun now over wealth later.
Yeah, instant gratification.
That's a big one. And finally, arrogance. Thinking you know it all, you don't need to learn anymore. That shuts down the continuous learning that's absolutely vital.
So tackling these means developing that growth mindset, being okay with smart risks, tuning out negativity, staying disciplined, prioritizing assets over trinkets, and always staying curious and willing to learn more. It sounds like personal development is just as important as the financial strategies.
Absolutely. That's a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
These 7 laws, they're not a magic formula for overnight riches. They represent a fundamental shift in thinking, moving from an employee mindset to an investor and entrepreneur mindset. It's about playing the long game, building real, sustainable wealth through knowledge, strategy, acquiring assets, creating opportunities, and, crucially, managing your own psychology along the way.
That's a powerful summary. It really brings it all together. So, thinking about these 7 laws we've just dug into, maybe a final thought for you listening is, what's one small shift, just one thing in your thinking, or maybe an action, that you could explore today based on this?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's just starting to research an asset class you didn't know about, or looking into one of those tax structures we mentioned, or even just catching yourself when you think, I can't afford it, and trying to ask, how can I? Instead, that journey often starts with just one step, right?
Indeed. And just remember, becoming financially literate, understanding this stuff, it's not a one-time thing. It's ongoing. The world changes, you keep learning, there's always more to explore.